I just want to know what sex feels like with a guy. I've had it with a girl. I want to know what sex or sexual intercourse looks like with a guy. So I've been thinking, I reference my past a lot, but I really want to invite you guys into that time period. So let's relive my experiences together as a gay black boy becoming a black gay man. In my own words, of course. Okay, let's just jump to second semester of senior year. This is where things get extremely interesting. Hey, real quick trigger warning. We're going to talk about some gay shit and some trauma. We're going to laugh, we're going to learn, we're going to do the things, but we're also going to talk about some gay shit and some trauma. I got to keep it real with you. Well, not always both. Well, maybe gay shit or trauma. It could be both, it could not be both. You get what I'm trying to say? Either way, we're going to talk about some gay shit and or some trauma. So prepare yourselves. So basically, when I was a kid, I really wasn't that interested in sex. I thought that sex would be fun, but I pushed sex as a thing that happens when you are older. That's just how my mind worked. That's not just how my mind worked, actually. My parents were very judgmental around two things: sex early and drugs. You were the worst person if you did either of those things. And so in my mind, I kind of internalized that a little bit. So I really didn't prioritize sex as a kid. However, when second semester of that senior year came, I could not hold it anymore. I needed to have sex. Hey, real quick, I hope you're enjoying the video, but can you subscribe? Thanks. And there was this girl that I had heard stories about, and I wasn't sure if I believed them or not, but in my mind, as a kid, I thought, if I've never had sex, I need to have sex with someone who has had sex. I mean, we both can't not know what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? So there's this girl who doesn't go to my school, but is hanging around people who went to my school, and she's a little chocolate girl, had a nice little body. So I'm thinking, this could be a good candidate for my first experience. So I remember thinking two things. Is my body gonna respond to her how it needs to? And are my parts working with something? You know, I'm a kid, so I don't really know what I'm doing for real. I had never really seen anyone else's. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm saying, big dog, are you good? Or, man, I don't know what's going on. Me and her were texting, and my parents were out for the day. And I remember inviting her over, and she was on her way. And I had condoms, and I just remember thinking, I want to be, erect when she gets here. I want to be up. So I remember going into the bathroom, and I was just, playing with myself, doing my little thing. And she gets to my crib. I offer her a glass of water downstairs. We go up to my parents' room because I had a really small twin bed I had a full-size bed until I graduated from high school, and I was like 6'1.5", 6'2" at the time. So it just wasn't gonna go down in there. So we're in my parents' room, and I had my first experience. And she kept saying, that wasn't your first time, was it? Or like, was that really your first time? Which made me feel like I must have done a good job, because clearly if this was my first time and it was given first time, she wouldn't have been asking, And then I remember her kind of moaning and being into it. So I'm also feeling affirmed in my parts. Like, okay, maybe a little man got a little something going on, And so at this point, all my friends that already had sex, I've now had sex. I'm back at school. I don't really tell anyone, but in my mind, there was a certain energy that I carried now because I had finally had sex with a girl. My straightness is consummated. I am affirmed in this. We're good. At this point, I'm straight, in my mind at least, and I'm good to go. So I'm back at school, and I have this newfound whatever. However, I did not know that after having sex and getting the confidence from sex as a young boy, all of my whatever would be woken up. All of my sexual interests, all of my sexual self-confidence, if you will, was up at this point, right? And I had this best friend, the guy I was talking about in my past video. I had this really close friend of mine, and he was really handsome. I mean, like quintessentially handsome. He was a little darker than me. He had light brown eyes. He played football as well. I played football my senior year, and he was just the cat's meow. And I remember he came to my crib to spend the weekend with me because he lived in another area. And I distinctly remember me making him uncomfortable. He wouldn't tell me because I think that he felt like we were good friends and didn't want to make it more awkward. But I remember making him feel awkward because I was so smitten by him. I was so interested in him in that way that I used to just make him feel uncomfortable, whether I looked at him too long, whether I would ask questions that didn't make any sense. Hey, girls be tripping, huh? Or, man, I like hanging with you, man. You like hanging with me? Those kind of weird questions that you would ask to gauge. Because in my mind, also, if you are like me, I need to know. Because I'm not about to let you pass by. Like, if you are, other guys I feel like were like me, if you're like me, you're like me. We probably could talk about it, but whatever. But this one, if you are like me, I need to know now. It got to the point where I was a little crazy about it. So I just ended up like dissolving the friendship. I was a weirdo towards him. I remember he invited me to his graduation party, and I came, and he was not there yet. And I remember just anticipating him coming in. I just left. And that might have been the last I saw him, or last I even was interacting with his mom or his friends and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, yeah, it was just not a good thing. So friendship is dissolved. I've lost my virginity. I'm in high school. I'm also dealing with the pressure of I had just signed up football scholarship to Morehouse College. I am anticipating adulthood, all the things that you go through as a senior in high school. So one of my classmates, brothers, cousins, whatever, if I was a senior in high school, he might have been like late 20s, maybe early 30s, probably late 20s. And he came to pick him up or what have you. And I remember clocking him. And I was like, something. Now, mind you, at this point, attraction is irrelevant to me. I just want to know what sex feels like with a guy. I've had it with a girl. I want to know what sex or sexual intercourse looks like with a guy. So he speaks to me, says what's up or what have you. And we have a little scuba banter. And then I get a Facebook message from him later on that evening, right? And we're talking back and forth. I'm telling him where I live. And I don't think I had a car at the time. So I was like, come pick me up. And my parents were really like lenient. That wasn't a thing. I wasn't like, be at home at this time. That wasn't a thing of my childhood. So he comes to pick me up. We go for this drive and we're in the car. And he's asking me questions. Have I done anything with a guy before? I was like, no. He was like, have you done this, done that? Who knows? Have you told anybody? Will you ever tell anybody? All these kinds of preliminary questions, right? And I remember kind of feeling like, this is just not what I expected it to be, nor is this the same feeling I had when I had an interaction with the girl. So we ended up pulling over in this like random subdivision. He pulls his pants down, I pull my pants down, and we just look at each other's. I'm looking at his, and he looks at mine, and he was like, kind of like, okay, bro, woo, woo. And I was like, yeah, appreciate you, whatever. And I think I was just really, really uncomfortable. And I call it the shakes. I don't know if you guys can resonate with this, but when my first time having sex, it wasn't with him, but my first time having sex, my first 3 or 4 times interacting with sex with a guy, my body was just like this. I would just shake and I had to like almost like do like this to like calm myself down. And that's the only environment in which my body's done that. My body has never done that in any other context. But when it comes to that, I would just be like this. And to the point where I had to be calmed down. Fast forward maybe like a month or so, I think he was either engaged or married to a woman. And I think that was my first encounter with someone who was DL. I had encounters again with kids, not sexual encounters, but I had encounters that I knew you were like me and you were young like me, so it didn't matter. But I had never experienced a person who was, an adult. And I think that was my intro to what it meant to truly live a double life. That was the first time I'm now holding on to someone else's big truth, right? I had never held on to anyone else's big secret before. I had hunches about people. I had, assumptions and judgments about whether or not this person was like me, but I never knew. So I never had to carry someone else's secret in that way. But now I got to carry someone's secret. And on top of carrying my own. And that within itself was hard. I go back to school. I want to say he messaged me on Facebook. And now what I understand to be keeping his own secret safe. I think he tried to keep me comfortable, if you will, right? The idea of, hey, making sure you're good or hope you're okay, that energy, just to ensure that I have a good version of him in my mind. And I remember just being like, I'm kind of cool on sex. I'm just cool on it. It just came with too much pressure, too much energy, too much. So So I kissed a few girls senior year, and that was all she wrote for me in terms of, interacting with my body in that way. But I remember the summer before I go to college, I was having this conversation with myself, like, okay, you are an adult, like a legitimate adult now. It is time to go to college. Who are you going to be when you get there? Let's really center in on straightness. At that time, I'm not really a porn watcher. That's not really my jam. I had started watching straight porn. I was like, I'm about to be straight. I'm about to center women. I'm going to make myself straight. It was almost like, okay, now I know that, my energy with guys, I'm super uncomfortable, but intrigued. I can have sex with a girl. I do like the idea of a guy more, but let me just start to put the puzzle pieces together of what I've learned about myself over these past 18 years and create this robot that I need to be. And it got down to what narrative I would portray in college. Who am I going to be? And that's when the pieces of who I became became real and calculated. And now they're also involving other people, right? Before, when I was a kid, it only involved me. My story, my narrative was predicated around safety and just myself. But now I'm thinking, how am I going to involve other guys in my narrative while still keeping my social understanding safe, while still keeping my friends out of the know and all that stuff? And so those puzzle pieces were, whew, and we'll get to that in the next episode, but those puzzle pieces were very specific and very what I believed through practice to be effective, which is why I think it took me so long to come out of the closet, because in my mind, the version of me that I created, and not even just the version of me that you guys saw or that people saw, the version of me that thought how I thought was good. I can exist as this person for, at the time in my mind, the rest of my life. I won't have to worry about anything else. I now have mastered what it means to do enough to, even if people have assumptions, it'll be clipped on the onset of having a girlfriend, doing this activity, doing this thing. And I'll get to that in the next episode. But I just now understood the game a little bit better. And I think that came after understanding how my body moved. And I think that's a lot of the fears around our sexuality, is like, what is our body gonna do? So yeah, I spent that summer creating who college me would be, both publicly and privately. I had a version of me that I would be on campus, and I had a version of me that I would be like on campus, but the version of me that you had to be a specific person to see, because a lot of it would happen in the open, right? A lot of it was happening right underneath, right? A lot of it was subtle and inconspicuous, but very pointed, very direct. And I needed that to be the case. So yeah, second semester of senior year was a very defining space for me, because again, it gave me the confidence in my body that I needed, but it also rooted the understanding that I was an insecure little boy. So I needed to continue to run for myself. And I didn't start to interact with my truth until way later. So that insecure boy who I was suppressing didn't do much but grow, but the more he grew, the more I suppressed. So the more other things I would do. And then it became, again, part of the robotic, part of the script, if you will, that I wrote for myself. This episode was this is, I don't, yeah. I think what's giving me pause in this moment is, although I can talk about the definitive realities and occurrences, I can't shake the fact that I am almost internalizing that fear again. I almost feel for him in that way. I want to give high school, senior year OBL a hug. He was under so much pressure, and it was so much going on. That was when my mom had became her meanest. My mom was always kind of mean, but she became her meanest when I was a senior in high school. And it was just a lot going on for me. And having to navigate all those waters at the same time was tough, to say the least. And so, yeah, like I said last video, if you are in those waters currently, pause, deep breaths, As much grace as you can give yourself, give it to yourself. It does get better, I promise. But I understand that it can feel daunting and scary and uncomfortable. Question. What do you wish you would have known before you started to engage with the idea of sex? Forget actually having it. What do you wish you would have known before you even tried something or thought about trying something or went about it? What do you wish you would have known? Drop it in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. You guys know the motto is always going to be the same. Keep creating space.